Welcome to the webinar, everyone. Another Wednesday, another opportunity to have a little lunch and learn some things. Today, it's all about what's making Americans fat. I probably should do a PSA announcement before I begin. There's a lot of people, it's now January the 9th. We have a lot of people out there that have started New Year's resolutions. There have been a lot of those people that have invested in some tools and some apps and some software and some counters and other things that are going to help them achieve their New Year's resolution goal. There's a large percentage of people that have already given up on that New Year's goal, and we're a little over a week in. Don't be discouraged. The PSA announcement that I want to make is your belief system is probably what's holding you back more than your effort in your resolution. And today is going to be one of those eye-opening opportunities, and it's going to be one of those things where some people are going to get upset. And some people would say that this is going to be a bit controversial, but the reality is it's not controversial at all. It's all scientifically based, and the information you're going to get is going to be extremely valuable, and I suggest you share it with as many people as you can, because the unfortunate reality of the world is the diet and weight loss industry is making billions of dollars a year, keeping you on the the little wheel. We're all the little hamsters on our wheel, running in the same direction, not moving, nothing, staying in place. And our diets keep failing, but yet we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And the reality is, it's just it's just not our fault. It is really just one of those situations where our belief system is what's causing the problem. So let's jump in. I could talk about that all day long. First, don't think outside the box. Think like there is no box. Okay, so everything that you think you know about this question, what's making Americans fat? And many of you have your opinion right now. But, think about it in a realm of, if you can forget everything you currently know, can you actually open your mind and take in this information? Prime example, Einstein failed math. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that in history. The reality is, no, he didn't. He failed an entrance exam for a school, but he still excelled in math. It's funny how that little telephone system, works. Somebody tells you something, and by the time you get to the 10th person, the story's a little bit different. Same thing here. Bulls hate the color red. Well, how can they hate the color red when they're colorblind? What they do is they perceive motion of the bullfighter's cloth as a threat. That's it. Red is just something that everyone in the stands can see, but yet, everyone thinks, you show a bull red, they're going to charge. No, it has everything to do with the motion. Salty water boils quicker. Really? Adding a sprinkle of salt to water makes no difference. It can actually make it take longer if you actually look at the science behind it. So again, your belief system, something you do all the time. I mean, I know my grandmother did it, my mother did it, my wife does it. Take salt, adds it to water. It's supposed to help you boil faster. Well, if you want water to boil faster, here's a secret. Put hot water in the pot. The whole idea behind boiling is raising the water temperature. If you already put hotter water in to begin with, guess what? It's going to boil faster than cold water. Just FYI, that's the easiest way to do it. And then, of course, the other one for all my pasta lovers out there in the world, oil stops, stuck pasta. No, not really. All it does is makes the pot greasy, and, stirring is actually what prevents the sticking. So, don't get lazy there. Just actually go in there and stir your noodles and everything will be fine. So, again, your belief system, things that you believe to be true are what's actually causing the problem. Here's a prime example. This is a beautiful picture taken from a boat somewhere at some point. Unfortunately, I was not on it. I did not get to experience this, though I'd love to sometime. But the question I have for you is, what color is the water? You're sitting here looking at this beautiful scene, and you're sitting there looking at the water. I mean, it's, beautiful blue water. I mean, it is what it is. So I'm asking you, what color is the water? And most of you right now are saying blue. Well, the reality is water is clear. Water has always been clear. Water will always be clear, unless, of course, you live in certain areas of the country where your water is now brown, contaminated, or full of other junk. I don't know how we can take something healthy and turn it into something unhealthy. But man, Americans are really good at it. But the reality is, water is not blue, water is clear. The reflection of the sky off the water is what gives it its blue tint. Yet most of us, if we're asked the question, would say blue. We would fight that the water is blue. We would even bet our money that the water is blue. But if you take it, put it in a glass, what you're going to find is that water is in fact clear. So, education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. See, our biggest issue that we have right now is all of us have certain belief systems. All of us have, gotten the information from a valued source. All of us have, listened to whomever, believe whatever, have read a book, have talked to an expert, and that belief system creates an opportunity for us to challenge others' belief systems. And as a result, you have all these different fads, all these different diets, all these different eating styles, all these different websites, books, webinars, blogs, etc. The reality is, if you just basically boil it down to its simplistic components, what you'll do is you'll actually find the results. But you have to start out with this, an open mind. So let's jump in. The balanced diet approach. This is America's favorite diet. The idea behind it is this. I can eat X number of calories per day, and if I eat more than that, all I have to do is work out in order to balance my diet out. In other words, as long as my movement and my basal metabolic rate, that's my base metabolic burn rate, and we did a presentation last week on the BMR, so if you want to learn about that, you can go back and watch last week's. But as long as my aptitude or my ability to move, including my BMR, exceeds the number of calories that I'm consuming, then I'm going to lose weight. And this is the way most people do things, and that's how they proceed. But have you ever thought about what that really means? A Coke, 54 minutes of lunges. A milkshake is 72 minutes of jump ropes. A donut, 88 minutes of setups. Chips and queso, 130 minutes of swimming. How about that burger and fries? That's only 141 minutes on the elliptical. A couple of pieces of pizza is, 159 minutes on the Stairmaster, or, hey, that wonderful Starbucks drink that probably cost you $8 or $9. Don't worry, that's only 170 minutes of Pilates. This balanced approach isn't working. You are not going to be able to outwork a bad diet. It is not going to happen. Here's one of my favorites. We're at the lunch hour. And I do apologize if you went out and got the Wendy's special. But if you did, and you got all of these wonderful things, you got the bacon cheeseburger, the fries, the nuggets, you got the little shake that comes along with it in your drink, and don't forget that barbecue sauce. There's 2 tablespoons of sugar in every teaspoon of barbecue sauce. Yeah, you heard me right. 2 tablespoons of sugar for every teaspoon of barbecue sauce. It's 2,480 calories. How are we going to get rid of that on the balanced diet approach? We're going to go run the Boston Marathon, and we're barely going to get there because that's going to run, that's going to get us about 2,600 calories on average. So we can have that for lunch, but you better be running a marathon this afternoon in order to burn it off. You can see why the balanced diet approach is never going to work. So many people want to reward themselves for the workout they did by giving themselves the ability to eat something that basically completely eliminates the effort that they put in at the gym. So workouts are easy. The real challenges are faced in the kitchen. So again, balanced diet, not working. What you have to do is focus on what you're consuming. Now, what happened to us next? So if you're not following the balanced diet approach, then you may have gone to your doctor. And medicine has gone to something called eat less, move more. I'm sure you've heard this. Your doctors have said this. I have my own personal story. I literally just went to the doctor for my annual physical, had some blood work done, had some strange stuff going on. I'm kind of a weird cat. I'm not going to, air it all out here, but the reality is, when I got done, the doctor literally looked at me and said, what you got to do is you just got to eat a little less and move a little more and everything will be great. And I looked at him, I said, are we still literally talking about that? I still can't believe it. I literally have a medical diagnosis report that basically tells me eat a little less, move a little more, and everything will be fine. And I'm like, are you serious? They told that to the wrong person, as you're about to see. Eat less, move more. Let's look at the science. Women's Health Study Initiative. Okay, now this was done by the National Institute of Health. lots of money thrown at this thing. I mean, millions of dollars spent on this study. It was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. What did it say? What it said is they looked at 50,000 women, okay? And when they looked at the 50,000 women over a 7.5-year period, so this was a long study, they reduced calories by 30% in half the women, increased carbs, fruits and vegetables and grains, and increased exercise by roughly 14%. So what they're looking at is they got them to increase their fruits and vegetables consumption. They reduced their calories by 30%. They had them exercise 14% more than the other group. So you have 25,000 that are just doing what they normally do, and you have 25,000 over a 7.5-year period that are reducing their calories by 30% and working out 14% more than the other group. The results showed a 13% reduction in metabolism and no weight difference between the do-nothing group and the study group. That's right. So over a 7.5-year period with the eat less, move more movement, what they found was no change. So what people did over a 7.5-year period is they denied themselves calories. They worked out harder than their counterparts, and their counterparts got the same exact result. And the waist circumference was the same as well. See, some people always say, well, maybe they did that, maybe they weighed the same, but, they fit better in their clothes, their body fat percentages were different. The reality is, no, they weren't either. The results were that this does not work. The eat less, move more simply doesn't do anything for you. So, that was done in 2006. So guess what? 2010, tell you what, we're going to do this again because that couldn't be true. Published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the health study. This was done in schools, 42 different schools, over 4,600 kids, grades 6 through 8. What they did is half got a low-calorie, low-fat diet along with increased exercise. The other said, tell you what, just be kids. Do your thing. Do what you normally do. What happened? At the end of 3 years, both the do-nothing group and the eat less, move more group had reduced their obesity rates from 50% to 45%. That's right. Then you had a half doing the low-fat, low-calorie exercise more, and the other doing what they normally do, and guess what? They got the same exact results. So eat less, move more, that doesn't work either. So your balanced diets, not happening. Your eat less, move more, which is what doctors are telling you, it's not working either. That's not going to happen. It's a complete and utter failure. But unfortunately, like I just told you, I was just given that advice by my own medical doctor the other day. Calories are not making Americans fat. Now, I told you that you're going to have to set aside your belief system and that you're going to have to think outside the box. In fact, you're going to have to think like there is no box. And this statement right here, this little screenshot, if you will, okay, is going to get so many reactions, so many comments, so many people saying this guy doesn't know what in the world he's talking about. I just bought my brand new calorie counter. How in the world are calories not making me fat? What do you mean? I don't have to count calories? I can eat whatever I want? Not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is calories are not what is making Americans fat. And I know you're basically questioning things, but stick with me. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. 1977 began a shift in American diet to the eat less, move more approach to health. Okay, so this is what we started. 1977 is when this all started. Calories should be counted. We have to do this balanced approach. We have, 100 calories of an apple versus 100 calories of soda. 100 calories. A calorie is a calorie is a calorie. How many times have you heard that? That's one of my most famous nutritional myths. A calorie is a calorie. You ever say that to me, you'll find out how much I disagree with that statement. Here's the reality. In 1977 to 2000, childhood obesity more than doubled in ages 6 to 11, tripled in ages 12 to 19, and obesity-related diseases became so common that we've eliminated the term adult onset diabetes as a medical term, and now we just call it type 2. There's a lot of you right now that are listening to this webinar that are like, hold on a second, what do you mean? Type 2 diabetes has always been called adult onset diabetes. It's something that we do to ourselves with the diet and lifestyle choices that we make, or genetic, predisposition to diabetes, and it happens in adulthood. The reality is type 2 diabetes is rampant in our children population right now. It has gone astronomical. Heck, on the Scientific Medical Advisory Board for ID Life, we have a childhood obesity specialist. I mean, I love Dr. Hancock to death. I hate the fact that this country needs a medical professional that has as her specialty childhood obesity. It's crazy. We should not need that type of profession, but we do. And today we're going to learn out why and why it's happening. But the reality is this eat less, move more movement, this balanced diet approach, all this came out in 1977. We're still talking about it today. You can see the numbers. It's right there in front of you. One soda a day increases a child's chance of obesity by 60%. I'm going to let that set in for all the parents out there in the world. One soda a day, just one. How many times have you heard that? Oh, I just let my kid have one. Increases the chance by 60%. But here's the question. There's no fat in soda. So if fat is making us fat, then how is it if I have one soda, that's increasing my child's obesity chance by 60%? Maybe fat isn't what's making us fat. Obese children are 17 times more likely to develop diabetes in adulthood. So that one soda a day, that's increasing their chances of being obese. If they do become obese as children, they're 17 times. Okay, this isn't 17% greater chance. This is 17 times more likely, 1,700% more likely, if you will, to develop adult diabetes. Food additives receive 30 times more federal subsidies than unprocessed carbs. In other words, fruits and vegetables. Make sure you got that one right there. We literally, as a government, as a taxpayer, are giving food additive companies, people that are genetically modifying our food, adding preservatives, doing all of these chemical enhancements and modifications and genetic modifications, 30 times more subsidies than we are the farmers in this country that are trying to grow things naturally and provide us true fruits and vegetables. 30 times. We are literally subsidizing the very things that are killing us as Americans. Think about that. Your tax dollars, okay? It's coming up on tax time. I mean, got my W-2 today. It's tax time, and the tax dollars you're about to send to our federal government, they're going to turn around and subsidize the very companies that are creating these chemicals and modifications that are causing most of our problems. Well, let's look and see what the government's doing. We have these new government dietary guidelines. We have these things that came out in 2015. They're good through 2020. The choosemyplate.gov. You can go take a look at it right now. I did, and here's basically what it says. And I was looking at what the recommendations are. Make half your plate fruits and vegetables. I absolutely believe that. In fact, I believe that so much that I believe that is the most simple diet on the planet. If you made half your plate fruits and vegetables, you can pretty much eat whatever you want on the rest of the plate as long as you're eating both, because what you're going to find is you're going to get a much different result than you currently are. And what's interesting is less than 20% of people actually have their recommended fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. So this would make a big difference. Focus on whole fruits, vary your veggies, vary your protein routine. I believe in all those things, but here's some questionable things. Make half your grains whole grains. Move to low fat and fat-free milk. There we are on that fat-free. The fat makes you fat again. And drink and eat less sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars. Okay. I guess we're still saying fat makes us fat. It's unfortunate that that's where we are as a country, but it seems like the guidelines and the advice is still off. So again, calories are not making us fat. If that's the case, what is? What is it that is making Americans fat if it's not calories? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's insulin. Insulin is making Americans fat. Now, there's a lot of people out there right now are saying, okay, hold on a second, Mark. Insulin is something that, you give to diabetics. It's, how could insulin be making me fat? Well, you have to understand your body's naturally producing insulin. So let's dive in and let me explain to you why it is insulin that is making Americans fat, not the calories. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna get a little sciencey here. I'm gonna try to make it as easy as I possibly can so that you can understand it, because the reality is your understanding, your ability to grab this concept is going to give you the ability to share this information with others that you care about and love. Most importantly, it's going to allow you to apply it. So let's dive in. First and foremost, when you eat something, okay, that is a carbohydrate, a sugar, a sweet, or something of that nature in your mind. You're going to have fructose and you're going to have glucose. Okay? The body processes fructose differently than it does glucose. So fructose is processed through the liver, turned into triglycerides, and then some of that's processed through the liver. Some of that, other fats go into the bloodstream. So that's kind of how the fructose component works. Glucose is broken down in the liver and then sent into the bloodstream. Your brain signals the pancreas to create the hormone insulin. So glucose has an insulin response. Fructose does not have an insulin response. So that's the way you need to think about it. So, what's funny about that is those two things are different. Most people think they're all created the same, but the reality is that's not actually how it works. So, you eat a food with carbohydrates. Let's talk about, a fruit. Let's talk about a bread. Let's talk about a pasta. Carbohydrates. And again, carbohydrates are not the devil. Carbs are not, the end all be all. Carbs are not all created equal. So that's a whole different presentation for another day. But for right now, we're going to treat them all the same for purposes of how the body will react to them. Your body gets a carbohydrate in some form. That carb changes to sugar in the body, or glucose. We just talked about this. After digestion, glucose enters the bloodstream. Your pancreas senses the rise in blood sugar, so it makes insulin. The insulin is released so the sugar can get into the cells so your body can use it as energy. That's basically how your body is designed to work. You eat a carb, your body processes the carb, your pancreas releases insulin, insulin goes in and helps push it into the cell so that you can release it later on for energy sources. So, how does insulin work? Insulin goes in. What happens is the glucose is floating around in the bloodstream, but guess what? It can't get into the door because it's closed. Insulin is like a key. Insulin goes down, unlocks the door. Now glucose can open up and get into the cell. That's how it works. That's what insulin's purpose is. But occasionally what happens is you get into an insulin resistance situation. This is when we start developing diabetes. What happens is not only is the door locked and closed, but it's already full of glucose. It cannot take any more glucose in. You are insulin resistant. So what you have is all of this insulin in the blood, all of this glucose in the blood, and there's no room in the cells for it to come in. As a result, you have high blood sugar. You have high blood sugar. What ends up is you get a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. This is the issue that we have. We have too much insulin in our bloodstream. We have too much glucose in our bloodstream. So imagine this for a second. I want people to really understand this concept. The idea behind insulin resistance is you have too much insulin and too much glucose in your blood. You have high blood sugar. Okay, so you have too much of it. So how do we go about it? First, you need to understand what it is. Sucrose, okay, equal parts fructose and glucose. Okay, that's your table sugar. Okay, then you have something called high fructose corn syrup. Well, that's a 55-45 mix. And the idea behind high fructose corn syrup is it's a cheap sweetener. Okay. And it is a huge problem. Most Americans are consuming over 300 calories of high fructose corn syrup per day. Let that set in for a second. Over 300 calories of high fructose corn syrup per day per American is the average. How is that possible? Well, because it's in everything. And I mean everything. From your over-the-counter drugs to your soft drinks, to your condiments, to your jellies, to your artificial sweeteners, to your burgers, to your sodas, to your juices. It's in everything. We have literally put it in everything because it's so cheap. It sweetens things up, makes them taste better. The worst offenders are snacks and sugary beverages. Hands down, without a doubt, high fructose corn syrup right there, they are everywhere in those items right there, and that's where we're getting most of it from. Fructose found in fruit is different than processed fructose, like high fructose corn syrup. Remember what I said earlier, not all things are created the same. So many people say, well, I can't eat fruit because I'm diabetic. Well, the reality is fruit isn't necessarily the problem. The body knows how to handle natural fructose from fruit. The problem is body doesn't know how to handle all of the processed foods that you added on top of the fruit. So that's why you kind of have the issue. But, consult your physician on that one. But the body does treat those types of fructose differently. This is one of my faves. Artificial sweeteners raise insulin levels worse than regular sugar. Hold on a second, Mark. I'm on a diet. My doctor told me use artificial sweeteners because, it's better than, regular sugar. Well, the issue is this. It is going to raise your insulin levels more. How is that possible? Well, if you understand how artificial sweeteners work, let me explain to you. Artificial sweetener goes into your bloodstream. The pancreas recognizes that as a rise in blood sugar. Okay, even though it's an artificial sweetener, the pancreas still gets the signal of, hey, I need to produce insulin, so it throws it into the bloodstream. The problem is this. It goes in and doesn't find the sugar. It doesn't know what to do. So what does it do? It does its secondary function, which converts everything in the stomach and around the areas to fat. So yes, all of these wonderful things that are sold as weight loss alternatives, sweetener alternatives, ways to help you lose weight because they have no calories, are actually making us fatter. Stay away from these things. You do not need them. All you have to do is change your taste parameters and change your taste buds, and you can start living without the sugar and the sweet in your life. And I know I'm saying this as somebody who, genetically knows that I don't have a sweet tooth, and yeah, that's true. I genetically don't have one. I have a bitter taste receptor, not a sweet taste receptor. But I know a lot of people do, and they have this addiction to sweet tasting things, but do not turn to these artificial sweeteners. They are actually causing worse problems for you. In fact, where we are right now as a country on sodas is the average American is consuming 56 gallons of soda per year. It's more than a gallon a week. Think about that for a second. This is where we are. We are consuming 56 gallons of this stuff per week. I have a tendency to go out to the country every now and then, and we occasionally get rust in the country because things are kind of left out in the weather and things. One of the best rust removers we have in our arsenal to clean rust off of metal is Coca-Cola. Think about that for a second. One of the best rust removers off of metal that we have when we're working on tractors and other things is to take a bottle of Coke, pour it on there with steel wool and rub it, and guess what happens? It removes the rust. That's what's happening in your body every time you consume one of these things. But here's the best part. Diet soda has 20% greater insulin spike than regular Coke. Yep, there you go. So all those people that are out there that are, doing the diets, they're looking at the various things, they're saying like, I'm drinking diet soda because it has no calories, because you're playing this balanced diet or the eat less, move more because you're counting calories. The problem is because you're counting calories, you are now going to increase your insulin levels. And again, insulin is what's making us fat, not the calories. In fact, consuming just 2 diet sodas per day increases your risk of contracting cardiovascular disease by 43%, according to the Northern Manhattan study that was done in 2012. I think those numbers are actually starting to get worse, to be honest. But the reality is this. These things are not helping you with your diet. These things are not helping you with your weight goals. These things are actually inhibiting them. In fact, the reason why is because insulin drives heart disease, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. See, insulin isn't only making us fat, it's also making us very, very sick. Most people don't realize that over 69% of people that have diabetes are going to die of heart disease. Diabetes is your body's warning signal that, hey, the heart ain't liking what you're doing and we need to change something. But unfortunately, most of us miss the signal and keep doing what we're doing, and as a result, we end up having these issues. In fact, I can remember when my mom had open heart surgery. She had a bypass surgery, and where she was sitting in the cardio ICU unit, and I was talking to one of the nurses, and I said, just out of curiosity, how many people that come through here on a regular basis that are having these bypass surgeries are diabetic? Because I saw that she had an insulin drip, and she said over 80%. Here's a nurse that sees all day, every day, people that have had bypass surgeries, open heart surgeries, people that are having to have their chest cracked open and their heart held in a surgeon's hand so that they can fix and repair the damage that the diet and lifestyle choices have created. And the reason why, most of them, is because they had diabetes and didn't do something about it, didn't change their diet and lifestyle that resulted in the surgery. So, just FYI. In 1980, only 1% of the population in China had type 2 diabetes. Here comes Coca-Cola and the other bottling companies of the world, all these soft drink companies of the world, Here they come into China in 1980, and what happens? By 2013, 11.6% of the population has type 2 diabetes. Now, I can't blame it just on them. There was a lot of other things that came on as well. We westernized China. We started sending them our processed foods. Our fast food companies started opening all of their restaurants over in China. They got all of the soft drinks. But the reality is this: when we started giving China our diet, we made them a very, very sick population, so much so that China has now taken us over as the percentage of the population with type 2 diabetes. It has gotten rampant. So, diabetes has a direct correlation to sugar, not calories. Think about that. Have you ever seen somebody who's extremely obese, but they do not have diabetes, but yet you have somebody who looks like they're fit and they do? You ever wondered why? Well, the reality is obesity and diet aren't necessarily linked to diabetes. What it is the amount of insulin in your body. Diabetes has a direct correlation to the amount of sugar that you're consuming, the amount of sugar that's in your blood, or your blood sugar or insulin amounts, not the calories that you're consuming. There is a huge difference between those two. In fact, the diabetes treatment protocol looks something like this right now. We start you out on metformin, then we go on to the next phase of drugs, and eventually we get you on the infused insulin or self-administered insulin, or now they have something called a long-term insulin. The reality is this has a 0% cure rate. 0%. I want you to think about this for a second. The medical way of handling diabetes has a 0% cure rate. This is a management protocol. This is managing diabetes. It is not curing diabetes. We do not cure diabetes through medicine. It does not happen. In fact, here's the way that it works. Remember earlier I explained to you the idea behind insulin resistance when we start to develop type 2 diabetes is we have too much insulin and too much glucose in our blood. We have high blood sugar, right? So high insulin levels causes obesity and type 2 diabetes. We have too much insulin in our blood. So what do we do to treat it? The medical treatment is to increase the amount of insulin production. Think about this for a second. The door is locked. Remember, we have that shut door. The room is full. We cannot put any more glucose in it. So what do? Well, we give you a doorbuster to go in and kick the door open to shove more insulin and more glucose into the cells. That's what we do. So it starts going into the cells and the organs and the tissues and the fats and everything else. So the idea behind the way that we treat it is we give it more. This is like somebody who's addicted to chocolate. The way that you get rid of the addiction is to give them more chocolate. That's what's happening with diabetes. Our treatment protocol is we're going to raise the insulin production, and that's how we're going to take care of it. How did this happen? Because type 1 diabetics. See, type 1 diabetes is treated with insulin. Reason why is because the type 1 diabetic does not produce insulin naturally. They need insulin in order to help them survive, to maintain. Unfortunately, medical science said, well, if it works for type 1 diabetic, it must work for type 2 diabetic, so that became the treatment protocol. Increased insulin production will make you fat. That's right. When you start giving somebody more insulin to manage their already existing insulin problem, you are guaranteed to make them fat because, again, insulin is what's making us fat. When we increase insulin production, it will increase our fat content of our body. Increased weight will make the disease worse. Again, 0% cure rate. This is a maintenance protocol. That's it. It will actually make situations worse. If you are on this protocol and you are not changing your diet and lifestyle like your medical professional told you, your nutritionist told you, or somebody else, the reason why they're telling you to change the diet and lifestyle is because this is not intended to be a long-term result or a cure system. This is to maintain until you can change your ways so that you might be able to reverse the disease. Type 2 diabetes is reversible, though. You have to eliminate processed foods, sugars, and starches. Increase your daily exercise and avoid artificial sweeteners. You can reverse it. It can happen. It has been shown and proven that you can reverse it. Not with medical science, but with diet and lifestyle changes. I am not saying eat less, move more. What I'm saying is eat the right things. You will have to get off the couch and move your body because most people that are dealing with this issue don't. And most importantly, avoid artificial sweeteners at all costs. Again, In just sodas alone, it's increasing your blood insulin levels by more than 20% compared to the regular thing. You have to avoid these sweeteners. You just do. A simple weight loss plan, reducing insulin producing foods, has resulted in a 100% success rate of weight reduction and improved health. Remember earlier I said you're going to have to think like there was no box. You're going to have to forget everything that you know, that you're going to have to set aside belief systems in order to really receive the information that you're going to get today. The reality is this: if we can reduce the insulin producing foods in our current diet, we will lose weight and improve our health 100% of the time. This is a guaranteed success rate system. It happens all the time. Try it for 2 days, see how you feel. Try it for a week, see what it looks like. Try it for a month and see what the results look like for you. You know, these are things that you can experiment with, you can try. And what you're going to find is your energy levels are going to go up, your health is going to go up, your clothes are going to fit better, you're going to feel a lot better. But the reality is it all starts in the kitchen, not in the gym. And most importantly, it starts with focus on insulin producing things, not the number of calories that you're trying to count. So weight loss starts today. You know, a lot of you are, like I said, 8 days into your resolution. Some of you have already started to question whether or not it's worth it. Some of you are getting ready to start. You know, we have a big challenge, here at ID Life that we're starting internally on our corporate wellness program. I think we're starting it next week, where we're kind of doing some things here to try to get all of our employees healthy. And I'm sure you have similar things at your jobs and things where you're trying to get people motivated and started. The reality is you are now equipped with information that can really help not only yourself, but the people that you love, care about, and want to assist. Share this information with them. Share this webinar with them. You know, get them access to this information. Put them in front of it and let them start to understand why they've never got the results that they looked for before. And the main reason why, their belief system held them back. You know, at ID Life, we're all about helping you help yourself, helping others, and helping the people that you love. The way that we do that is we become your trusted advisor. We give you the information. You know, we don't charge for this kind of stuff. We literally give it to you and say, look, put these diet and lifestyle choices into action. Make the choice today to forget everything that you think you know. You know, forget and think as if there was no box. Understand that the information that is being fed to you most likely was done by a marketing team with an intent and purpose of selling something. You know, search out, question, make sure that the information that you're following, the system that you're going to, abide by, the rules that you're going to live by are actually true and are going to get you the results that you're looking for. And if you're questioning those types of things and you want a valued resource, well, come on back, because every week we're doing something new to try and help you, help yourself and others.